All right, well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Fostering Community in Virtual Learning Environments. Today's webinar is generously sponsored by Essential Education, and today we have Dan Griffith from Essential Ed, who's going to share a few words with us. Dan?
Thanks, James. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody. We're excited to be able to sponsor this webinar today. You know, Essential Education is a publisher of only adult education materials. So we don't repackage K-12 content. We're not in any other market. This is what we focus on. I'm a student who dropped out of high school at 17, took the GED test in Colorado in 1980 something, and got my high school equivalency. The folks on our team are all people who have worked in adult ed, worked as teachers, or worked with students or volunteers, educational designers. We're really focused specifically on this market. So when we saw the opportunity to talk about fostering community, it really resonated with us, because although we are a for-profit company, we feel like we need to be your partner and really help in any way we can. And so just a couple of things. First is we have this wonderful site called our Teacher Toolkit. So you can go to essentialed.com/educators/get-toolkit. We have all kinds of resources up there for you, everything from webinars to downloads, activity templates, things that you can use with students. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff on our site as well, but that's a good place to start in seeing some of the materials that we've made in partnership with what we've heard from the field. Secondly, we have two courses that we offer that might be of interest to you. These are $15 per course. One is on motivating the adult learner, and the other one is blended learning and adult education. Both of these are about 3 to 5 hours if you just went straight through them. But what we find is teachers will come back to these over and over. And if you're new to the adult ed community, and maybe you've taught in middle school or high school or some other setting, this course on motivating the adult learner is really important, because it's a significant difference between how we motivate children and how we motivate adults. And then finally, let me just jump off of this real quick and go to wherever it went. Wait 1 second. It must be, well, I can't get it to change screens. Come on. No. All right, well, if you have the opportunity, go to our website, essentialed.com/educators, and we do have a whole series of tools up there. Our professional development Tuesdays with Essential Education, And you can also find links to our live coaching sessions for students, which offer all kinds of resources for them as they pursue their goals and potential. So with that, thank you so much for being here today. Thanks for the opportunity to sponsor this, James, and we'll turn it back over to y'all.
Great. Thanks so much, Dan. We're really appreciative of Essential Ads and your support of Adult Ed and support of COABE. Without your sponsorship, we would not be able to offer these professional development webinars to our members. So we're appreciative. Thank you very much.
You bet.
All right. Our presenters today are Rose Guzman Snyder and Patricia Irwin from the National Center for Families Learning. If you would say hello in the chat box, let us know where you're calling in from today. And if you can submit your questions in the Q&A box. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rosa and Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us today. As was mentioned, my name is Rosa Guzman Snyder, and I am here with my wonderful colleague, Patricia Irwin, and we are from the National Center for Families Learning, based out of Louisville, Kentucky, but as you will find, we are from everywhere. I'm currently in Homewood, Illinois, just right outside of Chicago. I just saw somebody in the chat say they were from Illinois, so yay to that. And I'll let Patricia introduce herself and talk a little bit more about NCFL. But before she does that, I just want to share real quickly what our time together looks like today. We are presenting on fostering community in virtual learning environments. Today, what we really want to focus on are some tools and resources that we can share with you to take back into your adult learning spaces. But really think about some of those shifts that came over the last year. Many of our organizations, many practitioners have had to make that shift from in-person learning to online learning. And so what are some of the lessons that we've learned? We certainly don't have all the answers, but we'd love to share some of our learnings with you today. Understanding that sense, why that sense of community is so important for adult learners. We want to model some activities with you, hopefully today. Hopefully you all are into that. And, as I shared with you before, sharing some additional activities, tools, and resources that you all could use in your classrooms. Moving forward, I want to just go ahead and let my colleague Patricia introduce herself and talk a little bit about NCFL.
Sure. Thank you, Rosa. Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to be with you all. I'm Patricia Irwin. As my colleague said, we work together with the National Center for Families Learning. She's in Illinois. I'm in North Carolina today, near the Asheville area. So I saw North Carolina in the chat. So hello, fellow Tar Heels. As my colleague shared, these are some of the items that we hope to cover in our time together today, focused on fostering community. So our work at NCFL for the 31 years that we have been in existence, our work has focused on promoting the need of whole family education as an equitable approach to supporting all children and families, no matter their socioeconomic background. So that's sort of our North Star, our guiding principle. So to carry out that work, these are some of the values that guide our work as an organization. We believe that all families bring funds of knowledge. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, skills and talents to share, and they can support their children's education. We believe in creating relationships with families that are built on mutual respect and trust. We create programming. We strive to create programming environments that are inclusive. We strive to create programs that provide equitable opportunities. And we believe in the power of families to be social change agents. So those are some of the values and principles that guide our work.
Thanks, Patricia. So I want to share with you all just a little bit about what has occurred over the last 18 months, 2 years. I came to NCFL in 2018, and I had a year of wonderful in-person convenings. I would travel and get to meet people in their communities, visit adult education classrooms, and I thought I had it all figured out. And moving into the school year of 2020, I had my playbook and I'm like, you know what, I'm ready. I'm ready to tackle this year. Of course, 2020 turned out to be just a really difficult year for many folks, particularly folks that are experiencing poverty or perhaps are in underserved communities. And so we had to very quickly pivot, as I know many folks did. That was like the word for 2020 in the education space was pivot. Everybody like, let's figure out what we do now. But here are some of the things that we kind of picked up on. And when I share these things, these are very much anecdotal. I didn't run a full-on survey on some of the lessons that I'm learning, but I did, listen to folks. I spent some time talking to adult learners, practitioners, and what is it that we're learning from these, from moving from in-person into virtual settings, particularly when it comes to that sense of community and connection that is so often essential to creating these adult learning spaces. So we learned that everyone, not just our students, everyone is searching for a sense of belonging, right? We were all kind of left in this, like, what's next? Where do I, even when I think about church groups or school or anything like that, there's always that kind of sense of, okay, how do I meet? Do we do online church? How is my kid going to be going to school? Like, there's always this uncertainty. There was this uncertainty that happened, but at the end of the day, everybody just, wanted to feel like they belong to some community, to something within this virtual space. The other thing that we learned is that folks want to be seen and heard. And this is an interesting one because particularly as we think about the Zoom world, oftentimes we get on Zoom meetings and we notice folks have their videos off or their microphones off, which is, totally common. But even with that, we've heard and we've seen that people want to be able to contribute something to the conversation, want to be able to contribute something to the learning. So in order to fully engage, we have to provide those opportunities for that learning to be reciprocal. So learning from our students, and then they're also kind of learning in that space. So that sense of being seen and heard has become super important. And then also just with the world kind of being in the place that it is, and I think about even my own family and so many families that I'm close to, and the sense of loss that has occurred in the last year and a half. Folks are just longing for some hope and positivism. I see that when I'm reading, I'm scrolling through Twitter or social media, like people really gravitating to books, shows, music, anything that is giving us a sense of positivism, hope. I'm even thinking, okay, this is totally silly, but like Ted Lasso, and I don't know if folks are familiar with Ted Lasso, but just like that's the kind of show that folks are wanting to gravitate towards, that sense of positivism, like not everything is lost in the world, right? And so how we're able to transmit that, how we're able to bring that to our adult learning spaces becomes increasingly important. So talking a little bit about the sense of belonging and what that would mean to our spaces. Want to make sure that we're setting those tones of availability and community. And what does that look like? So that might look like in a Zoom meeting, you sharing out with folks that you're going to be on every time about 5 minutes, 10 minutes early, just to be available to just chat, right? Even if you want to open the room up a little bit early and have folks go into breakout groups, having those pre-conversations that would usually happen in a traditional classroom setting, maybe replicating that as best as you can in the Zoom setting. So setting that availability that, you're just not coming and listening, we actually want you to engage. along that same line, creating opportunities for your adult learners to share in small groups. So typically I love to follow the, not in all spaces, not, of course, not in webinars, we can't do this, but the, teaching a concept, and just like you would in a adult ed setting, opening it up to small groups, that small group learning. So using that breakout room function as much as possible, because what we have found is that that's where the talking happens. That's where the reflection happens. And then also one of the things I love to see is when we're able to assign roles for your virtual session. One of my favorite roles that I love doing is assigning somebody the role of being the DJ, right? Putting that music ahead before the meeting, after the meeting, creating a playlist, like a group playlist where everybody shares their favorite song. One of the things that I've done with that before is, we do a playlist, and then once a song plays, we're able to guess whose song, based on what we know, whose song was that, like who picked that song within that playlist. So, assigning roles, maybe a chat moderator, that DJ, somebody that is keeping track of time, somebody that is looking at questions, and maybe sometimes as instructors, we need to be paused and saying, somebody that can kind of check in on the group and saying, maybe you need to repeat that again, or can you go back through that again, whatever that might look like. Just kind of setting that tone that everybody's kind of participating in this session, that this isn't just the facilitator or the teacher or the instructor, that one-way learning. We want to make as many opportunities for things to go, for things to be reciprocal. I'll let Patricia share a little bit about the benefits of community building.
Sure, Rosa. So Rosa has talked about some of the importance of creating that sense of connection among our learners, that longing for hope and positivity, and some ways to do that. So thinking about the benefits. So what does this, when we integrate some of these strategies with our learners in these educational settings, what does that do? So we know that building community does a couple of things. One, it helps to foster a sense of trust and connectedness to others. Sometimes there's a sense of uncertainty or anxiety, especially when we first enter a space as a new learner or participant. So establishing that sense of trust and connectedness is important. Community building also allows for the establishment of a safe space for sharing ideas, for exploring differences, for collaboration. If we feel connected to each other, it's easier to feel safe to take the risk to share the idea, to explore differences, to share opinions. That's an important part of the educational transaction, how we learn and grow. And so keeping in mind that sense of trust, of community, of connectedness is such an important part in the foundation of this process. So now we're going to talk about a specific way of doing this. I'll turn it over to Rosa.
Yeah, thanks, Patricia. And I think there is something in the chat, maybe something with your mic that might be a little muffled. So
oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll
Thank
go.
You.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm going to share with you all one of my favorite tools that I use for kind of fostering community and kind of connecting with our students, and kind of practicing that shared vulnerability. And one of the things I love about this activity, this poem activity, is that it's both a community builder and also supports literacy, of course, writing, reading, and speaking, all of those things, particularly if you're looking at English language learners. Sorry, you all. This is the benefits of being at home is you have dogs that bark. And the other thing that I love about this poem is that you have an opportunity to engage learners where they're at, right? There are opportunities for them to share as much about themselves or as little about themselves, very basic surface level things if that's what they feel like it, or you can also engage on a deeper level. And what we really want to try to get to with these community building activities and modeling this is, we want to move away from kind of this very surface level, like my favorite color is red, or things that are just kind of like one simple answers, but really kind of getting at questions that that are more wide, like what's behind that, right? So maybe the sharing your favorite foods growing up, what's behind sharing, what are behind those meals that you enjoy, like what memories does it bring up? So I'm going to share a poem, a piece. I'm not going to share the whole poem that I wrote, but this is called the Where I'm From poem. And then after I do this, I'm going to share with you all a link, give you all about a couple minutes to write in a phrase or two in that link. And then we're going to read our collective poem, probably not all 174 participants, but I will make sure that I pick up some pieces from this poem that we'll write together. So I'll share a little bit about my poem, and this is called the Where I'm From poem. I am from a border town. I am from Samuel and Rosalba. We moved to this country so you would be better than us. Make us proud. I'm from Selena. I'm from Michael Jackson. I'm from attending church all the time. I am from growing our food in our tiny garden. I am from speak Spanish in the home and English at school. I am from strong parents who work to give me a good life. I'm from Mexico in the summers and Denver during the school year. I'm from missing my grandma's garden and the birds. And now that she's gone, I am from becoming the best mom I can be to a girl. What I'm going to ask you all to do is to go ahead. I'm going to share a link right now. So one of the questions that I have for you as I read my poem, is there anything that I read that maybe resonated with you? Like you agreed, you were like, oh, that's a similar experience to what I've had. Or I also went to church all the time. Or I also spent maybe the summers with my grandparents in a different city or a different, those are the types of things that we do oftentimes that will connect our students and foster that community. So again, having that opportunity of connecting in a way that doesn't necessarily feel like a traditional icebreaker, but more like a writing activity or a prompt. So I believe I shared, or maybe not yet.
You did, Rosa, but I
Okay,
think as the chat goes along.
Okay, I'm going to share it one more time. So this is a shared Google Doc. I was going to do a Padlet. And so what you all do is just go in and just put I am from, and then just go ahead and type in any of these spots. I don't see anybody in it quite yet. Are folks going in? Or you could put it in the chat. Let me see. I'm going to put the
Rosa,
link.
can you put the link in one more time, please?
Oh, I was sending it to the host and the panelists. That's why.
Oh, you need to go to everyone.
Everyone, here we
Right.
go.
Yes, everyone. Yes.
I'm from the boomer generation. Yes, please feel free. And you could just, if there aren't enough spaces in the line, just go ahead and click, at tab and open up another line. I'm going to give folks just about 2-3 minutes to just put in some pieces in their I am from poem. And I'll read some that are on here. Oh, I love some of these, you all. Somebody said, go Big Red from the Nebraska Cornhuskers. You all, my husband's from Nebraska. This is not a good year for you all. Sorry. I'm not looking forward to tomorrow. Oh, can we go back to the last slide, Patricia?
Have I moved? Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I see collective poem. Is this the slide, or do we need to go back one more?
Okay, this one. No,
One more.
yeah, one forward. The one that has like the prompts, like family tendencies, family traits.
Yes, yes. Can you see that?
Oh, I love these. Thank you. Some folks have used this activity. Oh, I love these pieces, you all. This is beautiful.
Do we want to share the Google Doc?
I am sharing it. Yeah, on the yeah, I can do that. I can share it on the screen if you want to stop sharing, Patricia.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. Yes, we will share the slides. I believe so. Yes. All right. I'm going to give you all maybe another minute or two. Feel free to write down on the bottom. There's some spots on the bottom where you can, I probably won't read all of this just because it's it'll get pretty long. I'm sure there's a lot of folks on today's session, but I will for sure read some. Do you all see how folks can choose to engage in the, as deep or as surface as they want, right? You can maybe just share where you're from. I am from El Paso, Texas, right? Or I am from immigrating. I am from whatever that looks like. There's those opportunities to engage on a very like surface level, but then there's also opportunities with some of the deeper questions of phrases you were told, or meals, or family traits, or joys and losses. You can get real deep with that, and in that way kind of start creating that sense of community, and then even solidarity among your adult group of adult learners. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read some of these. And Patricia, if you want to, I will read one phrase, one sentence, and if you want to read another one, just so that we can have them kind of be alternated with different voices.
Sure.
All right, let me see. Here we go. I am from a Midwest town. My best friend was an old farmer that let me help plant our food.
I am from a country hollow in West Virginia. Family of hard work and love. Moved to town and miss my roots, but living a positive, blessed life, regardless of adversities and change. Parents who read to me every night.
I am from a small farming ranching community. I'm a first generation college graduate.
I am from Mount Rushmore, farmland and open spaces.
I'm from never knowing my grandparents, and only girls in the family with 4 boys.
I'm from Detroit. I'm from my mom's backyard garden, cold winters with snow. I'm from Sister Love.
I am from Spanish at home and English outside the home. Arroz con frijoles and hot dogs on the 4th of July.
I am from the Bozo Show and the Grand Prize Game. I remember that. I am from a small town with parents who taught me to think big.
I am from a family that escaped the Holocaust, the food, the smells, the sounds that they brought with them. Ooh.
I am from a long time ago that doesn't exist anymore. So happy.
I am from a military family with Southern food every Sunday after church. I am from hardworking, strict parents. I am from going to church and youth group all the time. I hear you there. I am from playing sports and loving football. I am from a dad who always showed his love but never verbally expressed it. I am from the South. It's so much a part of who I am. Beautiful.
Mhm. I am from immigrants who gathered for dancing and traditional dishes. I'm from people who lived generations in California. who explored the mountain trails and appreciated wild spaces.
I am from 7 brothers and sisters.
I am from New York, lived in Medellin, Colombia during my youth, and now live in South Carolina. I work in Greenville County and help immigrant adults learn English. I love learning and teaching people how to teach and empower others.
I am from a long time ago that doesn't exist anymore. Safe, happy. You will read a few more, Patricia.
Sure. I am from parents who value family, friends, and working hard to make a great life.
I am from a beautiful Latin culture in San Antonio, Texas, with beautiful traditions, a beautiful Latin culture in San Antonio, Texas, in the west side with warm abrazos y besos, a beautiful Latin culture in San Antonio, Texas, with delicious, unique, spicy foods, a beautiful Latin culture in San Antonio, Texas, that knows oppression and opportunity at prestigious university in 2 US generations.
I am from Spain, from a strong mom and a sweet dad, from the beach and the mountain, from a belief that there is nothing after this life, from a huge belief that knowledge is power and freedom.
Wonderful. Thank you, friends, so much for sharing. Oh my gosh, these are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sentiments, beautiful lines. I would love for you all to practice this with your students back home. As I said, these are opportunities for you to engage on surface levels, but then also deeper levels serve as an opportunity as well for literacy, right? Literacy, reading, writing, and speaking. So please, if you want, feel free to use this activity, and we will, of course, share the slides with you all. I'll share a little bit. I don't know, Patricia, if you want to share the hope and positivism slide. You know, we really see that need in our communities right now across the country, that folks are looking for places where they feel safe, where they feel that at the end, after a session, they're not going to leave feeling down on themselves, right? So how we do that is infusing that warmth, compassion, and caring sentiment feeling into our sessions. Asking folks, you know, how they're doing, asking them in particular. One of the things I love about Patricia, and I'll just share real quick, every time we talk on the phone, she knows what my kids' names are, Thomas and Eliana, and she will ask me by name. She will say, how are Thomas and Eliana doing? And she's very specific about, you know, just showing me that she cares, and that, you know, that there's that compassionate spirit, and knowing, you know, when our adult students, particularly those with children at home, you know, maybe the uncertainty and the fear around COVID, if they're home, that's a challenge. If they're in school, that's a challenge, just knowing that, you know, they might get sick at school. And so I think that just infusing that caring and compassion into our sessions will go a long way. You know, I'll share with you that in past times, I have heard folks, particularly adult educators, that will say, you know, it's very hard for me to focus on community building or icebreakers. They used to be called, you know, some folks call them icebreakers, because we have to get to the content, we have to get to the material. And I totally understand that. And I think that is very important. But as we think about the space that we are right now in the world, folks need a space, a container where they could just be, where they can show up just as they are and just be and be cared for. And it's lovely when you're able to provide that in your classrooms, in your virtual classrooms. I'll talk a little bit about community care sessions in a little bit and what those look like. Maybe you don't do them every week. Maybe, you know, at NCFL, we were doing them every 2 weeks, once a month. And I'll share what that might look like, what a community care session is. We talk a lot about self-care, but this is particularly how we can show up for each other as communities. You know, want you all to kind of think about encouraging group conversations, collaborative projects, being comfortable with different modes of engagement. And I'll share a little bit more about, creating Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups. It doesn't all have to be Zoom all of the time. You can certainly think about different platforms and different ways of engaging with folks. Of course, using the chat feature, using the, there are different QR codes, anything, a shared Google Doc is a great way of kind of getting folks engaged. And then always, of course, including fun and creativity. I'll share a little bit about community care sessions and what those are like. A community care session is typically around 30 to 45 minutes. So like I said, you probably won't do this every single time. This isn't an icebreaker. This isn't a way of folks kind of getting comfortable with, before you start the content. This would almost have to be its own separate thing. I know some classrooms or some centers or some schools that make this an optional thing. So whoever wants to show up to a community care session can. So typically what happens is that you do a light stretching or breathing exercise to start. So kind of that mindfulness breathing, whoever's facilitating would facilitate about 5 to 10 minutes of that. Well, sometimes at NCFL, we would have, the mindfulness breathing, but then we would also have like a dance session where we would just have somebody just, shake it out. And if they wanted to turn off their camera, they could. And sometimes it was just fun to watch people just dance it out sometimes, and just moving that body, rolling back your shoulders. Think how much time we're on the screen, particularly practitioners and teachers. It gets very, very hard on our shoulders, right? So just kind of doing things that make our bodies feel good. After that, we typically go into a quieting or centering exercise. The facilitator will typically ask a question or a prompt, and we invite participants to either just think about it, reflect, or also if you have a journal, if there's a journaling activity that you might do with your students, that would be a beautiful time for them to do that. Some of the questions that we ask are, share a challenge and a gratitude for the week. What has been a challenge? Have you all heard of the rose, the bud, and the thorn? So, the thorn is, the thing that might be bothering you this week. The bud is that thing that's developing that probably needs some growth. And then the rose is, something that's going really well, something that's blooming, something that's going well in your life right now. So those are the types of prompts that you can do as kind of a quieting exercise. So that would be the second part. And then do you use breakout groups for? Yes, for the community care sessions. We can, depending on the number, sometimes if it's just, 10 people, no. But if you have a larger group, more than 15, I would definitely keep groups to about 5, just a breakout group of about 5. And then afterwards, after they have that minute of reflection, those few minutes of reflection, we have an opportunity to share out. And what we invite folks is to do the gallery view in this part. And this is important because we want folks to see each other. So kind of opening up that gallery view. And then one of the things that we emphasize is that during this time, we don't do crosstalk. And let me tell you why this is important. So many times, like if somebody is sharing something, an experience that they're having, right? Our immediate reaction is either to fix it or to share like how your experience has been the same. So somebody says, you know what, I'm really struggling with my son doing virtual learning right now. My reaction would say, well, have you tried setting up a schedule or a little chart, or, it's that immediate want to fix. And oftentimes with community care sessions, folks just want to be heard. Again, that the idea of being seen and heard. Now, if they ask for suggestions, if they say, if anybody wants to share out anything that's worked for them, feel free to send me a chat or, a text or whatever. but it's really important that during this, sharing, we acknowledge the person that is speaking without immediately doing that crosstalk. And this is key to community care sessions, because going back to that idea of being seen, being heard, I know that what I just said is being taken in, and folks are kind of having to sit with it. And you know what gets really, I think this is powerful, but it's also uncomfortable, is when folks share something that's really bothering them. I know last summer when we had, in Louisville, and I was living in Louisville at the time, we had a tough summer in Louisville of a lot of racial unrest, and a lot of folks just kind of sitting with that and struggling with it. And when folks show up into our spaces and share out their discomfort, boy, it's hard not to just say, "Oh, I'm sorry," or immediately try to fix them, or "Let me make you happy," or "Can I," it's very difficult for us to just kind of sit with that discomfort. And so sometimes it's okay, like part of being seen as and part of being heard is allowing other folks to share the burden with us and just kind of sitting with that discomfort for a minute. That's part of community care. I'm not saying that we keep that discomfort forever, but it's part of kind of sharing in that burden. And obviously afterwards, if there are opportunities for you to connect with that person, it's okay to do so. I'll pass this along to Patricia to talk a little bit about funds of knowledge.
Sure, thanks, Rosa. So we mentioned earlier in our values the term funds of knowledge. You may be familiar with this term. Funds of knowledge are just collections of knowledge that our adults or families have, and cultural practices that are part of families' inner culture, work experience, or daily routine. It's the knowledge and expertise that students and their family members have because of their roles in their families, their communities, their cultures. We know that adult learners have a foundation of life experience and knowledge. They bring that with them. So seeking opportunities to learn more about these funds of knowledge provides a better understanding. If you think about some of the things that Rosa has shared, think about the Where I'm From poem, provide a better understanding of the backgrounds and lives of our learners, and helps build a sense of community. Something else to consider. Yes.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I think we're having a hard time hearing you for a second. Do you want to just check your mic really quick?
I can. Hold on just a second. I think everything's connected. Hold on.
So try it again.
Okay, can you all hear me okay?
It's still a little bit muffled. It's a little bit better. Folks, can you all, no, try it again?
Okay, let's see.
Maybe moving the mic closer, somebody said.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
Is that, no, yes, no.
Somebody said probably shouldn't use the headphones at all, maybe not using the computer mic.
Okay, hold on. I'll have to.
Sorry, Patricia.
It's okay. I'll have to stop sharing. I don't. Can you all hear me okay?
What do y'all think? Is it a little better? Yeah, just lean into the computer a little bit more. Yeah, try that. Go ahead.
Is that any better? Can you hear me okay?
I think it's better. Yeah, if you just want to lean in a little bit, I think, and just speak a little louder. Yeah.
All right. Okay, everyone, hold on. Give me a moment to get back to our PowerPoint here. So if you all can't hear me at any point, you'll just have to let me know. And I'll hopefully that's a little better. Is it thumbs up, Rosa? Is that any better? No? Okay. All right. So thinking about funds of knowledge, seeking opportunities to learn more about our learners' backgrounds, the things that have shaped them. As I mentioned, adult learners have a foundation of life experience and knowledge. And so as we learn this information about our participants, as we build this sense of community, you can, wherever possible, connect these life experience, these funds of knowledge and prior learning to new information, incorporating it into to our classroom practice. Rose going to talk about some additional tools and resources.
Yeah, thank you, Patricia. So folks, some of the things that you can think about doing is, rather than thinking about, online learning or Zoom sessions or whatever as a negative or as a deficit, thinking about ways to turn that into an asset. So thinking about the fact that now our adult learners are home and we have access to their home environment, right? And thinking about their home environments being learning tools as well. So some of the things that, if you're doing a session about, talking about pets or something around measurements or whatever, you could say, go to your kitchen and get your measuring cup, or show me your pet, or whatever that looks like. You now have access, if folks are comfortable, obviously, have access to so many to their home environments if they're comfortable with sharing. One of my favorite things to do is involving kids. Kids that kind of show up in Zoom sessions, or oftentimes I'll say, have your kids quiz you on something, and having flashcards around in a space. You have so many opportunities that you're not necessarily tied to a classroom setting. Also thinking about ways to connect outside of Zoom. This is super important. You want to make sure, oh yeah, ask where are you sitting? That's a good one, Kate. Thank you. Where are you sitting? Yes. So we want to make sure that we offer folks opportunities to engage with us and each other through other means. So not always Zoom, but maybe if they have WhatsApp groups, like if they have a classroom WhatsApp group, a classroom Facebook group, if you all have the opportunity to do discussion boards, that's always super helpful. Again, thinking about multiple ways of engaging outside of that traditional, 30 or hour-long session that you have on Zoom. And the last thing, discussion boards on what platform? You can, sometimes you could use, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but Google Docs for a lot of things. If you don't have an official online platform, you could also use a Jamboard, Padlet. If you all are familiar, Padlet is free. And I could put that link in the chat here. You can ask a question and then have it, have folks just kind of put it in Padlet.org. Yes, those are all great ways of engaging. One of the things I also love doing is making sure you kind of create those group agreements for your online community ahead of time. So there's been a lot of talk about, I remember one time I was in a leadership session with a couple adult learners and parents, and a parent called me after and she said, I'm really upset because most parents don't turn on their cameras during the session, right? And to her, that was a sign of disengagement or disrespect. So we kind of had to go back to the drawing board and set that, what are the expectations? Is it okay? Like, most folks don't want to have their camera on. I know I don't always have my camera on when I'm when I'm doing a session, or not when I'm presenting, but obviously when I'm just attending, I don't always have my camera on. Frankly, sometimes I don't look camera ready, and that's okay. But setting those agreements ahead of time makes it just so much easier. That way there isn't like, oh, he's not really engaging, or whatever. That there's just, what are the expectations for engagement. There are folks that have their camera off, but they're very active in the chat, and maybe that's okay, right? Maybe that's okay. So other types of group agreements is they could be, being mindful of if you're taking too much space or too little space, stepping in and out. Also, when you're not speaking, make sure you're on mute. Those sorts of things are really good group agreements that you can, and it's so much better when you decide ahead of time, when you design them with your group. All right. I am gonna go ahead and, oh, Patricia, I think you have the impact on adult learners, and then we'll go ahead and move on to questions.
Yes, I do. Can you all hear me okay?
Just lean in a little bit more.
Okay, all right. So when we think about the impact for adult learners, what does this sense of building community do for our adult ed students? Well, it has a positive impact in the areas of student retention and persistence. So as most of us know, when adults decide to resume their education, it may be after years away, there may be some negative feelings about previous educational experiences, and they may be carrying some anxiety. And so there's also the anxiety of stepping into an unfamiliar setting, unfamiliar territory, and then maybe wondering, can I do this? Do I belong here? So in thinking about everything that we've shared, what does community building look like? What are the benefits? It's important to establish this sense of community from the beginning, cultivating a sense of belonging from that orientation meeting, from that very first day of class. The creation, this is an important persistence strategy. So that sense of belonging, the creation and maintenance of a close-knit community of learners. That includes making sure everyone feels welcome, that everyone feels accepted, that everyone feels comfortable and respected. This goes a long way to helping learners, to increasing that sense of self-efficacy. I have a support group, a community that's with me. I can do this. And so that sense of connection and community is important. You all may be familiar with the New England Learner Persistence Project that was done several years ago, and it involved the exploration of and implementation of persistence strategies. Essentially, they wanted to know what works, what helps our students once they get here to stick with it, to meet their goals. And there were 6 drivers of persistence, and one of the agency, competence, stability, and relevance. The very first driver of persistence was a sense of belonging and community. So it's key in helping this sense of community that we've talked about today is key in helping our learners stick with us, retention and persistence, stay long enough to meet their educational goals. So now we have a few minutes left, and we wanted to leave time for questions for you all. Rosa, I noticed a couple questions in the Q&A forum. You did speak about the template. Someone asked, is there a template from the Where I'm From poem? And someone asked a good question, do you find that men are more reticent about sharing?
Great question.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, but one of the things that I have found is, even typically if it's just one man in a space, it becomes a little bit uncomfortable. But once they have like at least 2 or 3, and this has just been my experience, totally anecdotal, they become a little bit more comfortable knowing that they're not, in too much of a vulnerable space. And again, one of the things with the poem is just reiterating, share as much or as little as you want. Maybe you don't want to share everything right now, and that's okay, right? So maybe just sharing a piece, and maybe setting that expectation. So if you have two, maybe you're facilitating, and maybe you have another person that's supporting you. Maybe one person shares vulnerability and the other person models, surface, and that's okay. So make sure you kind of have a balance of both, of modeling really real vulnerability and modeling just what it looks like, and normalizing that it's okay just to share, something a little bit more surface level. The template will be in the slide deck that we'll share with you all. The main takeaway that I would love for you all to take through this webinar is the importance of building and fostering community in your adult learning spaces. Despite the many challenges that you might be going through in navigating virtual platforms, we cannot forget that sense of belonging and that sense of community that is needed. And it needs to be replicated in some way, even on a virtual platform. So it might require additional work. It might require some additional time, some additional resources, but it can't be ignored. We have to be able to replicate that sense of community in virtual platforms. Collaborative projects, yes. Projects outside of class. Perhaps we've had some families that have done that have met in outdoor settings like playgrounds. So sometimes they'll put together a presentation where they'll have to take pictures of certain things, and then they work together like on a shared Google Doc where they each put their picture in. This is important because it allows them to use that technology, use shared Google Docs or whatever, but also to be able to collaborate with each other. So if they can, meeting outside of class, but obviously with COVID and safety first, making sure that they feel comfortable. I do not have a template for group agreements, but I can share with you all a screen here that I can maybe share with what another community did. Patricia, do you want to unshare your screen really quick?
Sure.
And I can share. This is one from another community. Feel free to do just a screenshot. This is one that another group put together, is just understanding that the session's recorded, mute yourself, use chat for questions and comments. This is totally the beauty of these group agreements, is that they can design what they're like. So you don't, you can kind of have some ideas around, video, audio. They decided not to put anything around that, just whatever folks were comfortable with. So, this could be something that you put together with your group, not necessarily a template. Sometimes that agreement of like showing up on time is super important. I think just with Zoom and virtual classes, sometimes it's easy to show up even like a couple minutes late. Let me see. And can we access a recording of this presentation? Yes, I think so. Yes.
I think COAID will send a link. Our COAID support person can speak better to that, but I think a link of the presentation recording is provided.
Yeah. Context of community care sessions. Again, this is just for that idea, but this is just that idea that folks want to be seen and heard, that opportunity for them to share in a space where they can hold space for each other, be there for each other. It doesn't have to be, a part of there doesn't have to be any like learning objectives for that session. It could just be a space where, you move your body, you practice some mindfulness and reflection, and then you do a share out. very simple, and it's just meant to foster that being together and learning from each other. And it's not mandatory. Maybe folks that want to participate can participate, and folks that don't, they don't. It's just a tool that you can use. All right. I believe that is it. We're right at the hour. I don't have anything else, but there is a webinar pool. It's great having you all today. Thank you for the wonderful interaction. Thank you for the beautiful poem that you all put together. It was beautiful.
Yes, it was. Thank you so much, everyone.
Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. Enjoy the weather. This is perfect
Everyone.
weather right now. I don't know what part of the country everyone is from, but it is here in Chicago. It's gorgeous. So enjoy the weather.
It's beautiful here in North
Rosa,
Carolina.
Patricia, thank you both so much for a great presentation. Such a good topic, especially in these days. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I especially want to thank Dan Griffith with Essential Education for sponsoring today's webinar. And I hope everybody has a great day and a great weekend. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take good care. Stay safe.